Okay, let me begin by saying I already understand. The bones marked this place. I've seen him carve it into a mountain while digging gold for this whole crusher line and this shaker table. So I've been on his line, and I'm going to be on, well, in the batteries that he'll be doing later in terms of the lithium processing plant when I go to Shake Out Your Leg, Philly, and getting somebody to feed in the machine on the big threshers, the little thresher, low grade product that's got to be threshed out for e waste, anyways, onto a shaker table, or cleaning out ponds or mini bit factories popping up for this size. I mean, city would need a big one, right? You're going to need certain limit under. I deal with too much volume to deal with the machinery of the mining rates, right? Because whether it's coming into you, again, there's a small sample off of this. What this crushinator here is going to do, you're probably going to run into some maintenance on hammers that need to get changed, screens that need to get changed, and maybe some metal that get wore out, and a motor service rate in here. But it's pretty straightforward operation on the low end. Before, again, we get into some high grade, when we do the batteries later, I want to bring it up inside of this. He doesn't really know whether it's magnesium, whether that's carbon, or whether that's lithium for the black stuff separating out of the table. And from my position, according to where Elon's battery factory is probably doing something real similar, again, other systems that are doing something like this, are a nice little pop-up spring to what kind of volume you deal with what kind of e-waste you're getting. This is probably good grade. You know what I'm talking about? But, what's the processing limit over the long haul for cracking oil or going volume or whatever it is for gasoline and what have you? So there's probably a limit on just carbon or copper, and these are pretty good chips. You would want to clean out your system and re-rig for the gold ore he normally pumps through this with the big crushers he's got while running the system. Um, but this right here is what I want them to, so what makes that gold miner? Oh, how do you get that wheel to work? Well, it's a bit of fine art tuning on this table, being a crushinator. I love paintball, and only that'll make it work. A little bit of magic, yep, sure. And he's pulling that out of here, getting that in there. He's testing it, making sure there's no, at least in 3 common here, that this be a lot of the tailings of all that waste, and it really crushes it down. Water table, we can pH that out. We can put that water in a recycling facility to the amountage of going through it and cleaning out the settling tanks on timelines.
So let's take a look at all 3 of those, then we'll bag them up and get them sent back to the customer.
This guy,
so
I like
here's
it.
Here's our number 1 bucket. And it's always amazing to me how heavy these are.
Okay, so it's not Elon's facility, but give a guy a due, because when he gets there, this is his house right here. Asset management on this. I've seen him do this a million times. The process of running ore through it, a bunch of different types, copper, iron, whatever. Running a magnet over this stuff, it'll pull it right out. Washing it off and doing its thing, changing the magnets, and part of it. That's the biotech, man. Beep beep.
And a lot of that stuff is copper. And then those gold.
That's a lot of copper, right? Ooh.
I don't know if they're gold foil or gold plated something.
And gold. Silver in there too.
But that is where it's usually number 1. Makes it a little easier to see.
So he probably dried this out in a pan for specialties, but keep throwing it in there over a month, right? Of just grinding that out, and then we'll smelt that down in another refining facility. This needs to be separated. It's already karat gold to whatever the asset's going to be after you melt it down, and then you're going to karat gold its displaced weight in a brick or whatever you do, before you go melting it down and then refine it into whatever process timeline it is. But that's how you get all this back. And so you're going to start to lose it in 2 common. Stuff stuck to it. It's a little messier. There's less grade in it. Cutting them off. And then obviously your waste management team's got to come through both of those, or however you make the split outs on what the pie chart is there. And again, this being how that table vibrates to separate this. Obviously, we all kind of know the Hindi dude that's out there pounding it out with a hammer, doing the thing for a timeline on the system of packing out the pallets of copper and then hitting the crucible for a coin or something like that. Well, it's the same thing here, but it's obviously not as pure. But we have science, and the chemistry on this thing is not.
99.99% clean copper, and 98%
And we can get all
metal
that chemistry
and,
back
you know,
and keep
100%
sulfuric
metal,
acid and do that
99.9.
stuff
So
with it. Get a
between
copper
just
pipe in
those
here,
three
get the
fractions,
silver
1 and
out.
2, got
Then
almost all the metal,
use
and number 3
something to
got
drop it out of
almost all the
copper out of
waste and
solution, and
hardly any
then whatever's
metal.
left is
So
going to be like
there
acid
you go.
waste and
There's
things
1,
like
2,
that that
and
need to
3
be
from that first
readjusted,
sample
but
we
not
ran.
quite nuclear, not quite mercury in the water, right? With there might be mercury in there. We got to do stuff, man. Like, you got to keep that a closed system as far as that water table is concerned with e-waste. I mean, certainly rocks in the system, you still don't want that biomass not going in. And having a clean little tank that does that, you can shovel out for operating limits, tag out and lock out for the PRT on the differential, the overclock and servicing on these things is Bones territory. It's like, again, figuring out the tip of the bit, where you got to drill it and make sure you line it up right. Get all the rigs going and popsicles and bubble, duct tape. This thermodynamics problem about what that does is again as much here, but why change it? This looks like a pretty solid zenith for where Route 2 may be living in the equation of an officer's rank first board over there. I'm going to give him Brigadier pretty quick. I don't think much people are going to argue with me here. But, from yesterday or today, what are we looking at here, Baker? Gold. It's gold in there. So great. Again, should be solid technique. Works in the other stuff. Let's hit the lithium batteries, right? Let's jump into this thing.
Plugs.
They were an individual setup, so this wasn't even all of it. I've watched. I did before we get to the batteries.
Sample. The blue plastic.
Now,
the
lithium may be a bit
stuff.
different, but regular B-cell batteries or whatever, A batteries, B batteries, ABC batteries.
This is going to be an interesting one. I've never dealt with
batteries
batteries before.
Now we need one of those grinding machines to go with that. What are we talking about?
I think if I can get this to work,
we talking about 100K?
That's
a lot of overburden in an association of processors needing guys.
And pull all the steel off as it comes out. As you can see there.
Okay, so we got a trail of that black stuff running through, whether it's lithium, whether it's magnesium. And this should be carbon over here, right? Too light, it floats right off. It's a fine powder after the machine got a hold of it. Maybe a little bit of aluminum in there too that passes through if you ain't got your feeds and speeds right to the what do? You turn up the propane tank to 1.2 while smelting or melting copper in a crucible according to Big Stack, right? That's okay. So the pressure gauge was off. Why it took so much longer on a wave function, or didn't come out right, or you had a bunch of slag on the top of it that messed up the pour, or it didn't do something right to strip tier, melt in a gold bar and getting that perfect fingerprint on that bar, right? That kind of mint shop kind of gives me a little bit more security that, hey, you know what, I bet you this place is actually running at 99%, 99.9 fine, given the reduction of this equation. Helen Keller here, 1420, 1720, as the element in its density separating these things with a movement, a change that can radically separate the spectrum or the... If you had the right, mathematically it would be rose gold from yellow gold,
I don't know if it went
which
good
is denser.
Or not so good. Here's a little snapshot with the table off.
Anyways, well, again,
this